that means you can't enjoy new things. And by the way, this is a great way to grow old. If you really want to grow old, that's one of the ways that you do it. You perpetually live in the past. Because once you have nothing to work towards in the future, you're just kind of waiting to die. And that's a fast way to get old, because that's what old people do. They complain and they die. And so you've already got the complaining part down. I remember when. Now it's just that waiting to die part, because you're not really living. You're not taking in new experiences. You're not constantly testing new impressions. You're not visiting new tones or looking at paintings and seeing new textures. You can't enjoy a TikTok, but for some reason you can enjoy a Super Bowl commercial. The goal is to stay like that as long as possible, to die as young as possible, as far in the future as possible. Every experience that you have, as many times as you have it, you can find something new, something that you didn't notice before. We just shouldn't go through life with our eyes closed in all of our experiences. We're staring at the back of these gray walls with no color whatsoever and say, I've seen it all. You've seen it all inside that little courtyard, but you haven't seen anything of the world, much less the universe that stands outside of it. Or maybe there's some end goal. Maybe we're going to get there eventually anyway, but the path that we take to get there can be different. And it's true, by the way, we do all have an end goal in common, don't we? And it's in the cemetery. But the course of life that we take to get there, some people wind a lot wider, some people go straight across and get there in a hurry. But every time you take a turn or a wind, you're going to encounter something new, some new scenery, some new experience with somebody, some new conversation. You'll turn the radio on to a station you wouldn't normally listen to and hear something that you otherwise would never have enjoyed. So take the winding road, I suppose. Don't take time for granted. And that's our common response for why not. Because the idea is it can be taken away from you at any moment. But there's a more important reason that we shouldn't take things for granted, and that's because we lose the opportunity to appreciate it. In other words, if we just take it for granted, we don't appreciate it, we've lost the opportunity to have some joy in life. It isn't just that it's going to be taken away. Of course it's going to be taken away at some point, but when it's taken away, you have at least a good experience, a good memory of it. This is more for the next quote, but it still relates because of what Isa's saying. Happiness. What have we learned so far about happiness, especially from Frankl? How do we find happiness? How does happiness come about?
Go through experiences.
Yeah, you go through experiences and what? Yeah, it comes to you, yeah. So if you remember, he says that happiness comes from the things that we do, and when you do things, happiness ensues. So it comes from something that you're doing. But we don't ask the next question. So this is where happiness comes from. Now the question becomes, where does happiness go? Where does it go to afterwards? And of course, when you have a happy experience, where does it go? Obvious, it's not a tricky question.
Memories?
Yeah, it goes in your memories. So now your life largely is made up of happy memories. So for a lot of people, and hopefully you'll understand your angry grandparents a bit more when you understand this. Once you experience something in life, and then once the experience is gone, the experience now goes into your memories. This is where most people's happiness is. It's in their memories. It's not in their presence. It's not in discovering new things. One of the great joys of life is music. I mean, without music, life would be a mistake. And so if you want to find happiness, how many of us turn to music when we want to find happiness? Or we turn to music when we want to overcome sorrow, or whatever it is. We engage in this music thing. Why did I say it that way? We engage in this music thing. Sometimes I go back and watch the videos and I go, why the hell did I say it that way? That's going to be one of those examples. We want to be happy, we turn to music. When we are happy, we turn on music. You ever go to a party before with no music?
Yeah.
How was it? How was it?
Everybody was like already drunk, didn't notice it.
So you have a choice, alcohol or music. I don't know, I thought music, I thought it made people better dancers, alcohol and music. So, well, for the most part, we turn to music when we're looking for happiness, we're looking for joy. Now, I don't remember what the number was, so don't quote me on this, but something along these lines. I talked about it in my second period class last semester, I think. Maybe I did mention it to you guys. The average person discovers no new music after the age of, I think it was 30 or 27. I remember saying 35 to my students, and it ended up being way lower than that. In other words, people, when we're growing up, we get to like our mid-20s, late 20s, whatever it is, and then we listen to that music that we've listened to up until that point. That's what we listen to for the rest of our lives. And everything that comes out after that in people's minds sucks. Oh, new music today sucks. Why? Because it's not what I grew up with. And we'll have reasons for it. We'll have explanations. Oh my God, it's just so repetitive. Oh my God, it's all auto-tuned. It's all garbage. And yet still, you have to contend with the idea though that hundreds of millions of people walking the earth right now really like that music. So what is it that they're getting out of it that you're not? Now, we could just fold our arms, write it off, and take on the old person voice. It just sucks. Or you could sit there and go, what is it that they find interesting out of it? And guess what happens when you do that? Ensues. You find something in it. And you go, well, okay, I guess this is interesting about it. And then you can start to enjoy it. And then, but there's a lot of times a resistance, and we don't want to enjoy it. We want to think it sucks because it's different from what we used to listen to. But understand that if music brings you a great deal of joy in life, as soon as you cut off the idea of learning new music, you cut off the idea of learning new avenues of happiness, or new avenues of experience, or new avenues of joy. Good tunes is good tunes, regardless of where they come from or when. But if we just cut ourselves off and say, that's it, you lose that opportunity. And now what that means is that all of your joy is in your memories. And I bet that that's probably what it is for a lot of people. They listen to the music that they listened to when they were kids, and it takes them back to that time. And that sucks. I mean, it's nice to be able to go back to memories once in a while, but imagine driving around 6 hours a day or 5 hours a day or 2 hours a day even, listening to old music, and you're perpetually living those 2 hours a day in the past, remembering those old experiences. That means you're not building new ones. And so, that's not a good thing, Because that means that our life it isn't just that our life is perpetually passing, it's that for a lot of people, their life has just already passed. There's no good music. There's no good new movies. There's no good new this. Have you seen the way that the kids dress these days? Have you seen it? It's just all complaining because all of our joy is here. As soon as you can transcend that and find joy and happiness or excitement or something interesting in whatever is happening now, musically, in terms of film, culturally, what's that? TikTok, yeah. I've tried, man. I can't get over the whole Chinese spyware thing, but whatever. I can see that, for example, that's a complaint. Oh, it's so short. It's short attention span stuff. So, is it entertaining or not? I can't get into it. It's too short. Really? I had a friend of mine who was complaining about it, and he lives up in Los Angeles. And I remember we used to listen to punk rock together. You've ever heard the band Minor Threat? Old school punk band. You can't understand a word that they're saying. It's just thrashing guitars. Their songs are like 45 seconds. I don't think they have any songs longer than 1:10. And I'm like, dude, we used to listen to Minor Threat. He's like, yeah. Well, you're complaining that TikToks are too short? We used to listen to Minor Threat songs, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And he's like, but that's different. Yeah. Because he associates it with the time, with the memory. Then that means you can't enjoy new things. And by the way, this is a great way to grow old. If you really want to grow old, that's one of the ways that you do it. You perpetually live in the past. Because once you have nothing to work towards in the future, you're just kind of waiting to die. And that's a fast way to get old, because that's what old people do. They complain and they die. And so you've already got the complaining part down. I remember when. Now it's just that waiting to die part, because you're not really living. You're not taking in new experiences. You're not constantly testing new impressions. You're not visiting new tones or looking at paintings and seeing new textures. You can't enjoy a TikTok, but for some reason you can enjoy a Super Bowl commercial. What's that? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's because we have a block that we decide we don't want to like something, whatever it is. And so, once you decide that you're going to not like anything, even if it's subconsciously, you lose the ability to like new things. And there's a whole world out there, man. You guys ever, I don't know if any of you guys like babysit little kids, like little kids? You ever take them to the beach? They walk out there and they kind of like approach the beach like they walk like little baby gorillas. Like they have to stay low to the ground because of the sand. They're moving around. And they're experiencing this ocean for the first time. Or you take a little kid to like a waterfall and they see a waterfall for the first time. Maybe they've seen it on television before, but something completely different was in front of them. And that means that when you see that, all of us have been like that at some point in our lives. The goal is to stay like that as long as possible. To die as young as possible, as far in the future as possible, if you follow. And that means that there's so much out there that we can constantly be experiencing and testing, and like some of the saddest conversations I've ever heard in my life began with, do you remember when we did that? Do you remember when we did that? Do you remember when? Because that means you're constantly living all of your joy here, because we're not engaging life over here to find new impressions, to find new things that excite us. And then when you realize it, when you're a little kid, it's because the whole world is new. The whole world's new. And then as we get older, we think, I've seen it all. Yeah. In this little world that you've built around yourself, and all these walls that you've built around yourself, and if you never go outside the walls of the kingdom, you never get to encounter the world as it really is. You never get to find all those things that we write stories about, that we write poems about. And that's sad. Especially since a lot of us do it consciously, willingly. I'm saying that because some of you guys are going to, well, I shouldn't say it that way. All of you guys are going to graduate soon. And then you're going to go out into the world. And then you're going to start to erect these walls around yourselves. And I say that not about anybody specifically in here, but just my experience with people generally. We build these walls around ourselves. I'm not supposed to go over there. So we put up a wall that says we're not going to go that far over there. I'm not supposed to like this thing, so we put up a wall over there. And then later in life, you're staring in this very small area, this little courtyard of these really high walls that you've built around yourselves. And then we look around and we go, I've seen it all, as you stare at the back of these gray stones that you've built up around yourself. No color, no excitement, nothing new enters these walls. Once in a while a bird flies overhead and you see it, but you've walled yourself in here and you basically become a well frog. And what can you explain to a well frog? How would you explain the ocean to a well frog? How do you explain the sky and the moon, stars to a well frog? And so the hope, therefore, maybe is to die as young as possible, as far into the future as possible. If you understand that you never step into the same river twice, if you understand that you don't experience the same thing the same way twice, it gives you a lot of opportunities to experience it in the same way as a little kid goes to the beach or goes to a waterfall for the first time. Every experience that you have, as many times as you have it, you can find something new, something that you didn't notice before, if we're paying attention. We just shouldn't go through life with our eyes closed in all of our experiences. We're staring at the back of these gray walls with no color whatsoever and say, I've seen it all. You've seen it all inside that little courtyard, but you haven't seen anything of the world, much less the universe that stands outside of it. You step into that river, you go to that park, whatever it is, man, you have the opportunity to have it be something new. It was neat. Yesterday somebody was walking out of my classroom, and he stops at the door and he goes, has this painting always been here? The painting on the wall right here. And I said, no. He's all, when did you put it up? I go, like maybe a week or two before break. He goes, huh, okay, so I noticed it. Yes, good, all right, and he left. How many times have you walked out that door? We go on autopilot. I'm not saying there's always going to be something new there. All I'm saying is that if we're not ready for it, we will miss it when it is. So, accept the fact that you're not the same person. Embrace it. Questions? Yeah.
Well, we're not, like, ready for it, but doesn't that mean, like, it wasn't meant to be?
What do you mean by meant to be, though?
Like,
Let me make sure I understand what you... Who decides what's meant to be?
well, I'm just saying, like, if you're not looking for it, then that just wasn't meant for you to attain.
In order for us to say, like, this is meant to be or not meant to be, then you have to believe that there's somebody or something that's deciding that for you. In which case, I guess I could sit down on the ground right now and not move. And if it's meant to be that I would survive for the next 100 years sitting here without eating, then I'll survive, right? I'll be sitting here withering, and nobody goes, Scanlon, eat something. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I can take off my seatbelt and floor it in Mr. Truck, get was about to say 100 miles an hour, but Mr. Truck can't go 100 miles an hour anymore. But let's just say he could. And I can close my eyes on my way to school and go, if I'm meant to teach today, I'm going to teach today. Yeah, the thing is that there are things that are available to us and that's the walls thing, is that there are things that are available to us, but we're the ones who stop ourselves from encountering them. We talk ourselves out of experiences. We talk ourselves out of trying new things. We talk ourselves out of listening to new things. We talk ourselves out of movies. We talk ourselves out of talking to people. Who are some of the most interesting people you've ever talked to? How often do you talk about a person and say, I like them a lot. Why? Well, the conversations are easy because we have so much in common. Okay? That's easy then. Go get a mirror, put it in front of you, and have a conversation with the mirror. You have so much in common with yourself. No, but it's different. You're talking to a person. Yeah, but it's the same idea, though. You're talking to a person who just already believes what you believe. You're not growing from it. You're not getting anything out of it. There's something that's enjoyable about it, and you can get that out of it, some joy out of it. And then you can talk to that person and talk to that person, especially if it's someone you grew up with. And then someday you can always say, remember when? But if you will talk to people who you wouldn't normally talk to, that doesn't mean you get into arguments with them, doesn't mean you get into fights with them. But some of you in here I've talked to a little bit, and I've gotten to know a little bit about you. And that means that I've been able to live some of your life, little pieces of it. Which means that the scope of my life, every time I talk to you guys about something, or I get your perspectives, one of the reasons I like to hear from you guys here, because the scope of my life becomes so much broader. That I can see, oh, this is why you would say that. This is why people would think that. That's so fascinating that you see the world that way. There have been a few times that I've stopped and written some things down after you guys say things. I'm sure you've seen it. But I think that when there's an idea that if there's something that's moving in the universe that tells us, that kind of directs us, but that doesn't mean that it forces us to. In other words, you could say, there's a wall on the ground. I could pick it up, I have the opportunity. Well, if it's meant to be that the owner finds this, then it's meant to be. Or you could pick it up and say, well, let's see, who does this belong to? Oh, there's an address here, I'll go return it to them. Maybe you're the instrument of the meant to be. Maybe you're the person whose path was designed to do that, and then deliver that thing. And maybe in delivering that wallet, the whole course of your life, by the way, the whole course of your life is changed, whether you realize it or not. If you deliver that thing to that person's house, or if you call that person, your life is delayed by seconds, which means you're going to have those experiences and not other ones. But it's maddening because you don't know which experiences you're missing, and we don't always know the value of the experiences that we're having. So that goes back to what Abraham was saying about appreciating the moments right now for their own sake, not because of the fruit of what they might bring, but just for their own sake. And if you can enjoy the moments for their own sake, then happiness will ensue from it. You'll get something out of it. You will. I promise you that. Think about the classes that you probably enjoy the most. They're probably the classes you pay the most attention in. And then we can ask the chicken or the egg story. Well, maybe I pay attention because I find it interesting. Or maybe you find it interesting because you pay attention. Who knows? But you'll never know unless you try both of them. Of course, at this point, it might be too late. Getting into the third quarter, we might have missed so much that we're so far behind, we're so lost in the conversations that we might not get anything out of it. That happens. And it happens in life sometimes, too. And so, good question. Yeah, I think that if we understand the meant to be's properly, it probably is more like we have these opportunities are presented to us. And there's a better one for us, and there's a lesser one for us. Or maybe there's some end goal. Maybe we're going to get there eventually anyway, but the path that we take to get there can be different. And it's true, by the way. We do all have an end goal in common, don't we? We were just talking about that. It ends in the cemetery. But the course of life that we take to get there, some people wind a lot wider. Some people go straight across and get there in a hurry. But every time you take a turn or a wind, you're going to encounter something new. Some new scenery, some new experience with somebody, some new conversation. You'll turn the radio on to a station you wouldn't normally listen to and hear something that you otherwise would never have enjoyed. So take the winding road, I suppose. Good. Others? Yeah.
So what I got from this quote, kind of speaking like on a literal sense, no one can step in the same river twice and the river won't be the same, because now, like, everything, like how Damien said, everything's in motion, right? Everything changes. Once I step in the river, that river now has a footprint. That river was now different than before. And once I step out, I'm not the same, because now I have a wet foot and a dirty shoe.
And the mud is now imprinted with that shoe.
Yeah.
Which means the course of the river is now changed.
And then I couldn't connect this to another quote from the notebooks, but there was,
That's your specialty, man. That's supposed to be what you do.
but there was a quote that I've heard before. It says, history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And which is kind of like, let's just say, for example, like I go to a theme park, right? Disneyland. I go there for my first time. Again, the memories, I have the happiness. Later on, I go again, which is the same thing, right? It's not repeating itself, but it's kind of like a rhyme, because it's similar. I go to the theme park, but let's just say, oh, this ride changed. They closed this one. There's a new one. Things change, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and that's an important thing, by the way. Disneyland has changed. You know, they got rid of the Family Robinson tree. What? The what?
The old Tooth Town.
They got rid of the old Tube Town?
Yeah, they like remodeled it.
What the hell?
Oh,
Man,
it's
that
the
thing was
place
so
with the
great
frog
when I was a kid. Remember when...
Oh, no.
Here's the great thing. I still have the memories of the old Tube Town. Now that I know they've changed it, I'm going to go there again. I'm going to get a new collection of memories as well. I can double the enjoyment of life.
Yeah, it's the Princess Victoria.
I'm trying to remember the name of the treehouse, Family Robinson treehouse. There was some like thing that used to be there. It's not there anymore.
There's also a Splash
Yeah.
Mountain one.
What's that?
They're making it a Princess and the Frog now, I think.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. And that's the great thing. Remember when I told you the story about how I got kicked off with a ride? Did I tell you about that? I went to Disney jail. Oh, I went to
Disney jail.
I went to Disney jail. I never told you that?
Oh yeah, you did.
Oh, were you
Sure I did. Yeah. Did it?
Yeah, and then you were talking about how there's like a Mickey Mouse and the little.
Oh,
Trying to take my shoes now.
Yeah.
Uh,